On a cold winter morning in the dusty outskirts of New Mexico, the wind crawled across the land like a wounded animal, whining through old wooden fences and rattling the tin roofs of abandoned barns. And in that lonely landscape where most souls stayed locked inside their warm homes, a little girl walked barefoot along a dirt road, holding her thin arms tightly around her chest to keep the cold from stealing what little strength she had left. Her tangled golden brown hair whipping around her face, and her small stomach growling with the painful hunger she had grown far too used to. Her name was Lily, a child of only 7, whose mother had died months earlier and whose father had vanished into the mountains chasing work he never found, leaving her with nothing but a torn dress and a hunger that gnawed at her bones. And on that day, when her legs trembled beneath her and she wasn't sure whether she could take another step, she saw a tall Apache man riding slowly toward town on a chestnut horse, his long black braid hanging behind him like a banner of strength, his deep weathered eyes scanning the road the way a man does when he's learning to trust the world again. This man was known in town as Red Hawk, a quiet warrior with a heavy past and a heart scarred by the cruelties of life, a man who had lost his family in a winter storm years ago and carried the guilt the way others carried blankets or tools, always on his back, always heavy. And as he approached the trembling little girl, something inside him stirred, a memory, a ghost, a whisper of the children he once held and could never save. Lily gathered whatever courage hunger had left her, stepped forward shakily, looked up at this towering presence with eyes full of desperation, and whispered the words that would break his heart open like a cracked shell. "Sir, may I have a little bread?" The Apache man froze, his breath catching in his throat as if someone had squeezed it from his lungs, because her voice was not the voice of a stranger. It was the echo of his youngest daughter, the one whose memory still haunted his dreams, and for a moment he could not speak, could not breathe, could only stare at this starving, dirt-covered child who stood before him with more hope than strength. Red Hawk dismounted quickly, kneeling down so he could look her in the eyes, and when he saw the redness around them, the faint bruising under her cheekbones from days without food, and the tiny trembling in her voice, he felt an overwhelming grief rise inside him until a single tear rolled down his cheek, the first tear he had shed in years, and Lily, startled, whispered, "Did I say something wrong, sir?" But Red Hawk shook his head, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, whispering, "No, little one, you said everything right," and he reached into the saddlebag hanging from his horse and pulled out a small loaf of warm bread he had bought in town, breaking it carefully into pieces so her tiny hands could hold them. Lily devoured the first bite so fast she choked slightly, and Red Hawk steadied her, telling her softly to take her time, that no one would take the bread away from her. And with every bite she took, his heart cracked a little more, until the full weight of her loneliness pressed against his chest. When she finished, crumbs dusting her lips like snowflakes, she whispered again, her voice softer this time, "Thank you, sir. I didn't mean to make you cry." And Red Hawk closed his eyes, because she sounded so much like the daughter he lost that he couldn't speak for a moment. And when he opened them, he asked gently, "Where is your family, little one?" And that was when Lily's gaze fell to the ground, her voice barely audible as she said, "I don't have one anymore." And those words struck him like an arrow through the heart. He felt the wind shift, carrying with it a sense of fate, of destiny weaving two broken souls together. And in that moment he made a silent promise to himself, one that came from the deepest part of him, the part that still believed in second chances, in miracles, in the idea that even wounded men could protect someone again. He took Lily by the hand, lifted her gently onto his horse, and told her softly, "You are not alone anymore." And as they rode toward town, he knew that this meeting was no accident, that life had placed her in his path for a reason, and that whatever came next, whether danger, hardship, or fear, he would face it all to keep her safe. For she had awakened the part of his heart that had been trapped under ice for far too long, and this was only the beginning of the story that would change both their lives forever. And as the horse carried them toward the lights of town, Red Hawk looked at the little girl leaning against him for warmth and whispered a vow only the wind heard. "I lost one child to the winter. I will not lose another." And in that vow, a new family, fragile, unexpected, and beautiful, began to form beneath the cold winter sky. And to all the viewers watching this emotional journey, If this story touches your heart, and you want to see how fate unfolds for Lily and Redhawk in Chapter 2, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the next chapter will reveal the moment destiny truly binds them together in a way neither could have imagined.